Hi there, it's Thomas George and welcome to this video where I'm going to teach you how to record MIDI effects. So this video is actually taken from my complete Logic Pro course. If you're interested, then you can access this complete course via the link in the description below. Okay, so let's get started with this video. Now let's have a look at how to record MIDI effects. So with this, you can record the output of MIDI effects. So the MIDI that has been changed from the MIDI effects can now be recorded directly into the MIDI editor. I personally find this feature really useful, especially for recording in parts that have been transformed with the MIDI Arpeggiator effect. Okay, so right now in this song, I have this pad part, and on this pad part, I have a MIDI Arpeggiator effect. So let me just click on this MIDI effect now and play this back in the mix and also solo this so you can hear what this MIDI effect sounds like. I just have this on 8th notes and I'm using the down pattern. This will start on the highest notes of the chord and will go down to the lowest notes and then repeat. However, if I double click on this MIDI region to open up the MIDI editor, we can see it's just the chords. And if I disable this MIDI effect, you'll be able to hear it's just playing the chords. So what I want to do is actually record this arpeggiator effect into the MIDI editor. To do this though, we will need to record this part in again. Let me just close the arpeggiator and the MIDI editor and unsolo this track again. To do this though, we will need to record in this part again. We can do this by clicking on the right of this MIDI plugin where these two arrows are, then go down and select Record MIDI to Tracks here. Then you'll notice these orange arrow indicators appear either side of the plugin, and now when we record this part in with this plugin enabled, it will also record in the process MIDI data in the MIDI editor. So let's go back to the start by pressing Enter, and then delete this previous MIDI information. And now let's hit record and record in this part again. Let's double click on this MIDI region to open up the MIDI editor. And you can see here it's recorded in the process MIDI from the Arpeggiator MIDI effect. Let's now hear this back. So the Arpeggiator has transformed the MIDI data, which has now been recorded into this track. So now I can quickly edit some of this MIDI data in the MIDI editor. I'm just going to zoom in and adjust some of these. Let's make this velocity a bit quieter. And now let's hear this back. Okay, great. Now let's close the editor and loop this region. One thing to mention, if I adjust some of these MIDI notes, let's say I just move this back to a chord. Then if we have record MIDI to tracks enabled here and then play back, then it will play back what's written in the MIDI editor and will bypass this MIDI effect. However, if I uncheck record MIDI to tracks here, then it will continue playing this MIDI effect. Let's click on the arrow button here on the right of the MIDI effect and then uncheck record MIDI to tracks here. And you'll notice when I play this back, it will not play a chord, it will play the Arpeggiator MIDI effect. So if you've recorded in your part with record MIDI to tracks enabled and you don't want the MIDI effect to process the MIDI data anymore, then you can just leave record MIDI to tracks enabled, or you can just bypass this MIDI effect completely. So if I bypass this MIDI effect, you'll notice it will play a chord here. So I'm just going to press undo a few times, so we have the arpeggio MIDI data rather than the chord. Okay, so now let's try another MIDI effect. Let's go over to an empty slot in the MIDI effects over here. And for this example, just to keep it simple, let's choose Transposer. So with this, we can transpose our MIDI information or pull down 24 semitones or 2 octaves. For this example, let's just put it down 12 semitones or 1 octave. So let's hear this back. So we can actually set record MIDI to tracks for both of these MIDI effects. Right now, it will just record the arpeggiator, but if we select record MIDI to tracks for both of these MIDI effects, it will record both of them. Just make sure you select record MIDI to tracks for the MIDI effect at the bottom of the chain that you want to record. So for this example here, I want to have bar 17 play this MIDI part but an octave lower. So let's select bar 17 and then record in this MIDI part. Then the MIDI information in the editor will be processed by the Arpeggiator and Transposer MIDI effect. So let's hit record and do this now. Okay, let's hear this back. So you can hear there from bar 17, the MIDI data for this pad part is 1 octave lower because the MIDI information is being processed by the Arpeggiator and the Transposer MIDI effect here. Remember, you can always go into the MIDI editor and change some of the notes if you didn't play this in exactly how you wanted, or if you want to change this pattern. I'm going to open up the MIDI editor now and change a few of these notes. This note should have been here, and let's make this one a bit longer. And this one. And also this one. Okay, so that's how you can record the MIDI effects. Again, this works with all of the MIDI effects, and it's really helpful to get your processed MIDI effects into the MIDI editor for further editing and control. This video is actually taken from my complete Logic Pro course. If you'd like to continue learning Logic Pro with me, then be sure to check out this course via the link in the description below. So thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.